So instead of address, we just, what, planet? Go ahead, Nathan, state your name and where you live.
Sure, Nathan Loewen. I live in Winnipeg in the St. James neighborhood.
Welcome.
Thanks. So I'm wearing a shirt with the names of people who died in encounters with police in Winnipeg in 2019. And after last night, reportedly police shot a 16-year-old 9 times. And hopefully the individual survives, but there might be another name on this shirt. We made the shirts yesterday, and they're already out of date. So I'm a member of the group, or they may be out of date. I'm a member of the group Winnipeg Police Cause Harm. I'm going to speak today against approving the proposed budget from the Winnipeg Police Service because it is not in the best interests of Winnipeg residents or society as a whole. The police already account for nearly 27% of the city's operating budget, which is more than 4 times what the city spends on its failing and desperately underfunded public transit system, to take one example. We know that police do not decrease violence or crime rates because we have the evidence, and we just heard from an expert who spoke to this. For decades, there have been dramatic increases in policing and in incarceration in Winnipeg and in Manitoba broadly, with no corresponding increase in public safety or the well-being of residents. This criminalization does not produce more public safety. In fact, this year alone, 7 people have died, and possibly 8 after last night, in police custody or in encounters with police. And we don't know how many people have been injured and assaulted by the Winnipeg Police Service. Last month, I attended a panel event in the West End organized by the families of people who have died in custody or in jail. After the event, several people in attendance relayed stories of being assaulted by the Winnipeg Police or knowing someone who's been assaulted by the Winnipeg Police, almost as if it were a routine experience among people they know in this city. And in each case, that speaker was an Indigenous person. Between the year 2000 and 2017, 460 people have died in interactions with the police in Canada, with only 18 officers facing criminal charges in these 460 deaths. In the United States, where racist police violence and brutality has led to mass uprisings, just lost my place here.
All right, take your time.
In the U.S., where racist police violence and brutality has led to mass uprisings, there is a specific phrase, the blue wall of silence, for describing the systematic way that police lie and cover up their actions and their actions of peers. A CBC investigation published this month found that in just the last 5 years, Canadian judges have tossed out dozens of cases because of, quote, unreliable, unquote, police testimony. If you read that article in plain language, these are situations where police lied, covered up their own abuses, and fabricated evidence. The lawyer Tom Engel, who chairs the policing committee for the Alberta Criminal Trial Lawyers Association, told the CBC that while such cases illustrate a, quote, corrosive, unquote, problem with police across Canada, they only represent, quote, the tip of the iceberg, unquote. In my experience doing frontline work with homeless and low-income people in cities like Vancouver, Edmonton, Regina, and Winnipeg, I have found that police are frequently viewed as a threat to personal safety. And this is especially true for Indigenous people and people of color. I heard these same concerns expressed this month at the Bell Tower in the North End on November 7th, when affected community members rallied for increased social supports and not more policing. They were very clear about this, and their concerns were validated by experts at an annual meeting of the Manitoba Criminal Justice Association that same day on November 7th. The CBC reported on that and said that experts, including the Executive Director of the Social Planning Council of Winnipeg, a forensic and child psychiatrist, quote, highlighted poverty, social inequities, and mental health issues as the main drivers of crime. Poverty, social inequities, and mental health. I would assume that everyone in this room can agree that the police are not created to address those things. As an institution, the police were not created to address poverty, economic inequality, mental health crises, affordable housing, addiction supports, and colonial racism. I was going to ask if there's anyone here who thinks that that's the purpose of the police, to alleviate racism, to alleviate inequality, to provide social supports. We know that's not the case. In fact, when you research the origins of the police in the 19th century in North America, you find that the police were created to uphold the interests of a white propertied ruling class. And there's a lot of historical evidence on this. Someone I'm familiar with is a historian from Illinois named Sam Matrani, who has a book called The Rise of the Chicago Police Department. Historically, the police have always helped to enforce white supremacy and social inequality. And this is certainly true in the prairies, where the North Mounted Police were created in part to dispossess indigenous nations of their land, to make way for the railroad and for white settlement. And it's also here in Winnipeg where mounted police shot down striking workers 100 years ago in the Winnipeg General Strike. And if people are looking for more reading on the history of policing in Winnipeg and Manitoba, there's a professor at the University of Manitoba, Elizabeth Comack, who has a book called Racialized Policing, Aboriginal Encounters with Police. That's published in 2012 here in Winnipeg by Fernwood Publishing. I recommend it, Racialized Policing. In 2019, we live in a city with the largest urban Indigenous population in Canada, and it is Indigenous and racialized people who are disproportionately subject to police harassment and violence. No city council or municipal body that wants to take reconciliation seriously should be considering increasing the police budget. And this is especially true in Winnipeg, which already has more police per capita than cities including Toronto, Calgary, and Ottawa, and where the police received a 3.4% budget increase last year. Did those extra millions from the city budget do anything to reduce violent crime or increase public safety? Does anyone have evidence of that? Did that budget windfall do anything to address the root causes of violent crime in this city? And I would note that the police, Winnipeg Police also, as far as I understand, received some provincial funding. I think there's $10 million devoted by the provincial government. So if we look to the empirical evidence, if we look to people in affected frontline communities, like the people who were speaking out at the Bell Tower in the North End, if we look to expert opinion, like the speaker before me, in each case we see the answer is the same. Increased policing does not reduce violent crime and does not address the root causes of violent crime. So the question remains, if policing does nothing to address the root causes of violent crime, and furthermore, if police themselves are agents of racialized violence and abuse, then what sense does it make to increase the police budget? Year after year after year after year after year after year, trying to address social issues that the police are categorically incapable of addressing. It doesn't make any sense. Winnipeg is already over-policed and has nothing good to show for that over-policing. Instead of police helicopters, tanks, and drones, we should be devoting resources to social housing, to supervised safe injection sites, to accessible and culturally appropriate mental health supports, to food security programs, to employment and income supports, to warm, welcoming libraries that don't treat people like criminals. In other words, we should devote resources to the things that people really desperately need in this city, the things that lift people up together, not the things that kick them down. Increasing the police budget does the exact opposite. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions? Damon, do you want to jump in? Do you have any questions on the reconciliation part? Or?
Well, I think this individual has highlighted some important issues that we need to discuss, certainly, and then to take action. And I understand everything you said and support what you said.
So I understand what you're saying in the message very clearly, and as somebody who's been a victim of crime, I don't know if you have.
I have, sure.
I have as well, and it's not well, right? I mean, I lost my mother to a murder, so I understand that part of it, and I understand the low-income world, and I get that. What is your suggestion where the money goes? Like, what do you? How many police are you suggesting? I mean, the police don't do the social services you do. They do not. But if you look at the entire budget, first of all, it is the Canadian government says that the number of police officers, we're 14th in Canada. We are not the highest one. $10 million from the provincial government. That's for downtown. That's their own project. It doesn't go to the police. It's a downtown project that Manitoba government, and I'm very familiar with the Sir Robert Peel, who actually started the whole policing business in history, right, in London. That's the gentleman who started it. And it was very much like you said, though, it was different in that day. So I'm wondering what what do you suggest we do?
I think it's very clear, and the last speaker said it too. Maybe the difficulty is grasping that we're saying the police should get less money, less of the budget, decrease the amount of money the police get, put that money into the realms of municipal budgeting that address the basic needs of people in the city and speak to inequality, poverty, and these other things, of which violent crime is merely a symptom. I think everyone agrees. We agree on that. And we have the evidence that increased policing does not address the root causes of violent crime. We have experts who say that criminalization actually makes violent crime more frequent in potentially. So what I'm asking for is that the police budget be reduced or eliminated, and that we devote public money to the public good.
That's clear. Go ahead. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, just real quick. Again, we have a set of laws, right, that govern all of us. And there are certain people that choose to believe that it's not applicable to them. How do we address that if we totally reduce our budget towards police who enforce the laws that govern us all?
Well, the escalating police budgets, are they doing a good job, in your opinion, of reducing crime?
But by totally getting rid of a budget that addresses, how we govern ourselves through these laws, I don't think is the answer either.
Okay, so you seem to tacitly acknowledge that increasing the police budget is not reducing crime, so thank you for at least implicitly acknowledging that. And so,
Just to be clear, did you acknowledge that? You did not acknowledge that? Okay.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask again. Do you think that increasing the police budget every
just
year
to be
is doing
clear,
a good
excuse
job?
me, sorry, sir. Just to be clear, the clerk had reminded me that you cannot ask questions.
Okay.
It's the same for city councilors, by the way, so I've sat there and tried that.
So to answer the question I was asking, increasing the police budget isn't addressing the issue that you're posing to me. If your issue is that people are robbing liquor stores or whatever it is, increasing the police budget is not actually going to address that, because those are symptoms of deeper problems in our society. And people are desperate, they're oppressed, they're unwell, and they are not getting what they need in life. No one walks into a convenience store with a machete or whatever if their life is going okay and if they have the support they need in their life. People will not do those things if they have what they need. And so my proposal is reducing police because they don't help, and putting the money into things that actually address the root causes and build communities up. We need to invest in communities and disinvest in police.
Go ahead.
My question is around the fact that I think our responsibility lies in maintaining safety within our community. I think it's the right of every citizen to feel safe and be out in the community. And I'd like to know, we are, I want to say to some degree, struggling to maintain safety with the current budgets that we have. If we start decreasing those, we can no longer, I believe, maintain the level of safety. So as reactionary as we are to the situations currently, it's difficult to be proactive. So I'm not sure how we can decrease or eliminate dollars when in fact we're just trying to keep up with the crime that's going on at present time. And we certainly need to be concerned about the safety or the level of comfort and safety for our citizens.
Okay, well, that's not a question, but I'll answer you. The police are not reducing crime, like I said. I I don't guess that you spend a lot of time walking around this city as an Indigenous person or someone who's visibly low income, someone who has mental health issues that they don't have a prescription for. I know a lot of Indigenous people in this city and in other cities in the prairies who feel more unsafe when there is a police officer around. You're not speaking to that issue. The police actually make a lot of people in the city feel less safe.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Next presenters are...
Next delegation is Esther Wolf.